Richard Maxwell here with the Arcadia High School Creative Musical Arts and Sciences program. I am joined by Jaden Chavez and Madison, and I've got Elias over here, and I have the mayor himself, Mr. Dr. Professor Andrew Gonzalez. I don't really know why that keeps it. He just came here to student teach.
You know what's funny? My band has a fan that calls me Professor Andy.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Professor Andy.
Because he knows I go to school and I teach.
Okay.
So, yeah, he just calls me the professor.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. Professor Andy. I think that could catch on. That's nice. That's nice. So some of the folks here are literally here. We are spread out throughout the CMAS facility. Jaden is joining us remotely, which is totally cool as well. And we're just kind of, finishing out our week, as they say, kind of seeing what there is to see and talk about and do and all that. I have a question for you guys, and I'm curious. We're not going to have a political discussion at all about this, and we're not going to have any of that kind of vibe with it. But I am curious, strictly from the standpoint of creative inspiration. I'm wondering, how do you feel about this notion of if we, because right now as a school we're in a hybrid, so some students are here, some students are remote. I'd like to think, perhaps naively, but I'd like to think that in the CMAS program we've been able to strike a decent balance with things, imperfectly perhaps. I'm wondering though how you feel. We'll start with the students, if that's okay with you, Mr. Gonzalez. I'm wondering how you feel about this possibility of, if we were to go back to all online, or if we were to be all back in person, but still having the masks, still having all of the social distancing things, like how does that impact, again, not the politics of it or anything else. I'm just wondering, how does that impact your creative decisions, you think? Does the change of modality, are we at a point, I guess, where what I'm wondering is are we at a point where the modality of what we're doing has become less of a thing and it's more just about strictly, are we back to being where I can kind of just focus on if it's a good idea or not?
Yeah, I'll agree with that, because right now we're just trying to get by.
Okay. So does it matter then?
Well, I think it matters more than ever, because as long as you can create something now, then I feel like that's a success. Because we don't have the opportunities like we did last time with collaborating with people, just straight out jamming all in a big group circle and making music like that. That's kind of illegal now. So
although we have, and I suppose you could argue our live shows, we're not doing anything illegal, but we are obviously pushing some boundaries to make this still
limits, happen. And so I'm just thinking it's extremely frowned upon.
Okay.
The fact that and it's just risky now, which is super sad that something enjoyable is like that. But
do you feel? Wait a minute, hold on. I'm just going. Do you feel risk? Do you feel like you're taking an unnecessary risk when you've been in our shows?
No, I feel like the shows have been one of the safest things possible. I feel like your classroom in general is just super safe.
Okay, so, that makes me feel good.
It's
but
okay.
Is that rooted in though? Because we've been pretty Mr. Gonzalez and I are running around half the time being you're not 6 feet apart and make sure the mask is and blah blah. I mean, and all these other things that are essential. But I don't know. I'm just wondering. We had this whole idea early on when I started the program. The idea was that you would be able to make stuff. And I never really defined it in terms of what we are now dealing with, partially because it never occurred to me. There are limitations on both sides of this, and I'm wondering, that's what I'm really trying to get after is, are those limitations now more about perception, or are they still legitimately limitations?
I think that's relative,
I think
go on.
Well, because Jaden and I are working on a project right now together, right? And because how I would love to do is normally what I would do with someone is sit down with them in person and we just go over the song a couple times together, throw in bits and pieces, try stuff out together, share an instrument, that kind of thing. Like sit down at the same piano or something like that, share a guitar or something like that, pass it back and forth, just throwing ideas out there. Right now, what Jade and I are doing are sending things back and forth, bits and pieces, which is less efficient. I don't know that it's less effective necessarily, because it's working. We're still working on the project. It's just, it is different. It's not.
Okay, so, it's interesting though. So, like you said, it might be less efficient. It might not be, but it's still not, it's still effective, even if it's less efficient.
Yeah.
So I guess
we're still able to get things done. Like I said, like if we make something, then that's a success.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm gathering from you is on some level, it doesn't matter any like the I don't know how else to say this on a Friday afternoon, and maybe I'm just tired. Like the novelty of whether it's EDL, enhanced distance learning, or whether it's in person, that as a creative factor, yes, you have to deal with it, but it's no longer the deal breaker we thought it was in March.
Yeah, because if you stay hung up on it, then you're not going to get anything done. So now everyone's just trying to figure out, well, what can we do instead of focusing on what we can't do anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Madison, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's all really the same.
Okay, so like it doesn't really matter to you.
Mm-mm.
Interesting. Mr. Gonzalez, as an educator professional, what do you think?
Can you remind me
You need to unmute your.
Could you remind me the question or the context?
Does the modality of how we're doing things really, at this point, is that the biggest factor? Because for the longest time, that's the thing that everybody's been talking about. Kids can't learn, teachers can't teach, parents are losing their minds, nothing can really be accomplished. I'm not saying that as a true or a false statement. I'm just saying that's largely what we hear.
And how it affects creativity.
I'm wondering how it affects their creativity, and what do you observe?
I feel like more so than that stuff, it's just the stress. Stress is one of the biggest hindering factors for creativity. And I feel like it's not necessarily like one particular thing or the different environment that we're in, but just the maybe the collective stress of it all that keeps us. Because we can be creative anywhere, but like you could be walking in or on a plane and maybe coming up with something. You can make anything anywhere, basically, if you have your notebook, right? But with the cumulative stress that we experience through everything you just mentioned, everything's just a little harder.
Sure. Well, and that makes total sense to me. I guess I also just wonder, like, so you said something along the lines of everybody's just trying to figure out what they can do now rather than worrying about.
Well, yeah, because for a while there, everybody was freaking out and it's like, oh, we can't do this. School's not working anymore. Everybody's stressing out about that. And it's still really stressful for everyone. Like everyone's still struggling, obviously. But I think everyone in general is trying to like just make the most of it and make the best of a bad situation.
Okay.
And a lot of the creative energy is actually focused on solving the problem. Like that requires some thinking outside the box sometimes.
Right.
So.
Well, okay, let me ask I'm going to go back to Jaden for a second. Without giving away anything, Jaden, you recently are back online for a little while, which is totally cool.
Yep.
The details of it totally removed. Kind of like my arm is when I go like, that's weird. That's just, I don't know how I feel about this green screen thing. Anyway, sorry, that's a separate topic. Do you feel, obviously you're not here at the school with us
No,
when we're meeting in class, you're at home. Do you feel like creatively, because I have been looking at this from both sides, and sometimes I think those of you that are at home actually have more opportunities in some ways creatively, because like here during class, like right now we're doing the podcast, we're all spread out so far from each other. We're way more than 6 feet. We're okay. But during class, everybody, the mask is not even an option. It's got to be on, and you have to be careful where you're going. And we're being very meticulous about where we allow people and how we allow them and everything else. Whereas at least when you're at home, the extra, like to Mr. Gonzalez's point about stress, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like when you went back online, did you suddenly feel like, whoa, this is different?
I feel like from a school standpoint, it's more stressful because I just think online stuff is super unorganized and weird. But from a musical standpoint, I think it's easier because I have everything here,
Okay.
And I'm able to be more creative because, I mean, this whole situation I think is kind of like, it sucks, but I think that's also an outlet. Like you can use creativity as an outlet to express how awful, I guess, this whole situation can be.
Right.
I don't know. I think, okay. It's inspiring in the weirdest of ways, but it's also limiting. And it's just a weird situation that we're all in. But I think that's enjoyable.
Sure.
In a weird way. You know what I mean?
Is there a possibility, and I mean, I'm throwing this open to all of you. Is there a possibility, though, that what Jaden is describing on some level, maybe we're in an extreme circumstance, I don't know. But on some level, you could almost substitute this for any other time in history. Like there's always going to be something that's a distraction or something that's going to be some kind of creative block or preventative experience, there's always the possibility that there's going to be something that comes up, the Beatles, I mean, not to be silly, but like the Beatles literally, on one level you could say they had everything and wouldn't we all love to have their problems, but they got so fed up creatively, not because of a pandemic. They got fed up because when they would go and play live, they felt like nobody was actually listening. It became extremely demoralizing for them. So they decided, we're not playing live anymore. And then there's this whole series of, basically the last part of their career with pretty much just that one exception. Well, maybe two, if you want to count the live broadcast that was telecast. There wasn't a lot of live performances, my point. There's the one up on top of the studio that basically from the ground level, it turns out nobody could really hear anything, even though it seemed really, really loud. And Ringo was upset because he wanted the cops to, that's how he wanted it to end, with the cops pulling them off to jail, But I guess what I'm asking you is it possible that these circumstances, maybe they're amplified, but they're not, are they really that unique in the creative journey of people?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, like, everyone's got there's always like a distraction or an excuse to why you shouldn't get stuff done. For me, this has almost been ironically a motivation to start doing things, because for me there was always something like, oh, there's always this that I have to focus on, and this is occupying my time, and there's this thing that when this is over I can start doing this again, and when this is finally over, and now this thing, there's not really a foreseeable endings, so I just gotta get stuff done now.
So okay, but that's a really interesting thought about that. Like, you've kind of just taken on the attitude of, I can only control what I can control. I know that ultimately I want to make stuff, so I'm just not going to let those barriers dictate. I mean, at least that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, in the beginning it was really hard to get stuff. When we were first quarantined, I thought I had in my head, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get so many recordings done now that we're all I've got nothing better to do. That's not what happened. But now that everything's sort of settling down and everyone is sort of figured things out and knows what's going on in some sort of way, it's easier to just pretend like things aren't so crazy and jacked up. Okay. And just focus on being creative.
Yeah, I thought I would have an album by now.
Yeah.
I think we all did. We were all like, I've got all this great stuff to do. Madison, okay, so you recently revealed that I think it was actually last week's podcast maybe, but you revealed that you've got a new song, and you were a little anxious to share that, probably because you figured I was going to talk about it all the time and potentially bring it up a lot. But, oh well, too bad, so sad, or whatever the cool kids say. But kidding aside, I don't know what the answers I'm hoping for here, and maybe it's just a matter of I'm just curious what the answer is. Do you think if you look back at the moment where you felt like, oh my gosh, I actually have the song. I know you're not quite done with it. You were just mentioning, I think yesterday, that you got some now, like you're going back and you're not sure about the music, if you really like quite how the melodies all work and everything else. And that's totally cool. But I'm just wondering, on balance, do you feel like, did the song get, I'm gonna air quote, done because this was just, now you're ready to do it, and the experience of being around all the other people, and you're new this year to the program and whatever, did it happen because of that? Or did it happen because something about the fact that your schedule was so radically changed, and maybe like Elias said, it's like, well, I got nothing better to do now. Like what got that song finished for you?
I guess it was probably more because I thought I had more time to work on it now with like the circumstances. And like even going to like the first show that I went to, that kind of hit the spot, like as in getting inspired to work on it.
Okay. So let's pretend we could snap our fingers, wouldn't this be great? And COVID's gone and everybody's cool and we don't have to worry about masks anymore and social, like we're back to whatever normal means to you from February. Okay. So we snap our fingers and we're instantly back there. Do you think that whatever triggered that creative spark, does it remain or does it go away? Or does it change in some capacity, maybe, as a third option?
I think it'll change.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, Jaden.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Madison. I'm just wondering.
I think it would probably not be there.
You think it would disappear?
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's not. So for you, at least, that whatever that moment was impactful. It was very powerful, but it didn't latch on with a sense of permanence yet for you. Okay. So that might be something we should consider is what do you need in your process so that when we do, I mean, obviously, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could snap our fingers and it goes away. Clearly that's not going to happen. But when it does eventually go away, between now and then, we should probably explore a little bit of what is it you need yourself so that it feels like, okay, I'm on a roll with this, or I can move forward. You know what I'm saying? Like what? And I don't know what the answer is. I think part of the thing with this program is that every single one of you is wonderfully unique in that, like, but it is something worth considering. Have you thought about that at all?
In a way.
In what way? Be more specific.
I don't know, like kind of like I've thought of it, but then I like haven't, like I don't know.
That's fair. Well, I mean, it's scary. I mean, that's the weird thing about doing this is it's making stuff under these circumstances can be almost terrifying in some respects. It's literally like what's the Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility. There's a little bit of a connection there sometimes, at least as far as how you feel. Jaden, I cut you off briefly there because I wanted to give Madison a chance to address it because of her circumstance. But what were you going to say?
I totally spaced out. I don't remember.
we were talking about the idea of if we could snap our fingers and COVID goes away, does it change your perspective on just making stuff happen?
Yeah, I think it would change because I'm thinking like you'll have a greater appreciation of just like the littlest of things now. Mm-hmm. Just like being able to pass a guitar to a friend without like putting them in mortal dangers, like something you take for granted.
Right.
You know what
Fair
I mean?
enough.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I think it would just be more appreciative of just the simpler things, which I think would make the creative process a lot more enjoyable. Because then you realize it's not about making something good. It's more about just having fun with whoever you're making it with. If you're making it with someone, of course.
But shouldn't it always be that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it should. Maybe it shouldn't.
I think it should, but I just don't think a lot of people realize it.
Okay.
It takes limitations to realize what you don't have, I guess. I don't know.
Are you, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So are you saying that because you're limited in how you can execute this, essentially, it means that the things you can do mean more to you?
Yeah. And then whenever you get those limitations back, like not being able to like do a drum circle or something, you know, then it's even more meaningful. So
Okay.
it goes both ways. The whole process just becomes that much more enjoyable, I think.
That's interesting.
Afterwards. Yeah.
Does it? Okay. It's so interesting though. Like, I wonder how universal of a thought that is in
I
some
think
ways.
it's a pretty good life lesson.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. I meant more universal, like how many people will agree with you.
Oh, I don't know. You gotta have to ask a bunch of people.
Well, that's true. We may have to share this out at some point. Mr. Gonzalez, what are your thoughts on this?
Remind me of the question.
We snap our fingers, COVID goes away.
Yeah.
Does it change your overall perspective on your creativity? Or is it now just all one fluid and you're muted again?
I mean, maybe.
You're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, maybe. I know with COVID, it's kind of helped me take a step back and just kind of identify what's important in my life and what needs to happen for certain things to happen. Right? Whereas, like before COVID, you know, I was having a lot of fun playing shows, and playing shows is great and fun and all. But I was really focused on that when I probably should have been more focused on school, right? So when shows went away, I had to reevaluate my priorities, and you know, even when COVID goes away again, or not again, when it does go away, I don't know, those priorities will probably stick around, you know. Although I am excited to reintroduce that part of my life again back into it.
So that actually brings me to my closing question. I'm going to ask you guys we seem to end these by going around the horn a little bit. I am curious, unfortunately not through a snap of fingers, but COVID eventually does go away. My question is, what's the number one thing right now, at least, that you feel like as soon as COVID's gone, the first thing from a creative standpoint, like what's the thing you're looking most forward to? We'll start with you. Mr. Gonzalez, we'll start with you.
I'm looking forward to going to shows, playing shows.
Okay.
Some of my best friends I've made over the last 5 years were going to concerts, and then we ended up having a lot of the same friends, and so I've had a lot of fullness in my life because of music, and it really hurts not being able to do that right now.
Okay.
So that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most.
That's good. Elias, what do you think?
Playing with an audience. I miss an audience, which is not something I ever thought I'd say because, as I've talked about before, I used to have horrible stage fright, and I didn't realize how much I'd started enjoying doing shows until after we stopped doing them. And the first time I ever did like an actual show again, even though it was without a live audience, I realized how much I missed it, and I miss having an audience to interact with.
No, that's true. I didn't mean to laugh. I was just kind of.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. Madison.
I think being able to go to concerts would be mine, because I was supposed to go to a concert like I think it was last month. But because of COVID, it got rescheduled for next year. Mm-hmm. And I just miss doing that because those are fun.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about the fact that it was like, I remember when this all started, and then it was weird. Like you'd be like, we're moving in a month. And like at the time, that seemed completely plausible. Right? Like back in March when they said, well, we're going to shift everything. It'll be late April or May, but we'll And it seemed totally reasonable. And now looking back on that, I'm like, we all fell for that. Are you kidding me? There's no chance that was going to happen.
You remember 2 weeks to slow the spread?
Yeah. Exactly. Sounds
that was
great.
why.
Yeah. So Jaden, I'm going to give you the last word here. What's the number one first thing creatively?
I would want to go outside and busk, because like that's something I've missed a lot too. I mean, it was just fun, but now no one's like really out. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people here in Arizona are, but it's like dangerous, you know? I want to do that in peace and just being able to just flow with my pan and just meet a bunch of good people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I miss
Absolutely.
that. I miss that so much. Just being able to just chill with a bunch of hippies and just vibe, you know? It was nice.
Yeah, no, of course. And, it's funny you say, I guess for me, it's interesting to hear all of you talk that there's this element of, even if you can do it right now in some capacity, there's so many limitations, restrictions, or I don't know, blocks to it, that it won't feel the same. Like, no matter what the circumstances would be, you would still have kind of like I don't know if I can. Or I don't know if it doesn't have the same vibe about it, which I think is a big part of it in creativity. It's kind of necessary. I want to thank Jaden and Madison and Elias and Mr. Gonzalez for joining me today. This is a good conversation. I've said this so many times, but honestly, I cannot think of a better way to end a week than to talk to some of you about these things. It's just really cool. It makes me think about what I myself want to accomplish and what I want to do, which is kind of nice, and conveniently I did not answer, but that's okay because we're out of time. So maybe next week. Hey, speaking of next week, it's Thanksgiving, so we will not officially have a podcast, but there is a possibility, there's a rumor, air quote rumor, that we may do a bonus show on Tuesday of next week before Thanksgiving. So check out arcadiacmas.com or arcadiacmas.com/YouTube. We'll put up a notice if we decide to go ahead and do that. I think there's actually a little bit better than a coin toss that we may wind up doing that show. We'll see. But if nothing else, thank you so much for those of you that have tuned in and for supporting the program and all these wonderful students and everybody throughout. And we will see you all again very, very soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.